great-grandparents and forefathers into the minds of young, enthusiastic children using TikTok. Welcome to the show. This episode kicks off right here in South Africa, where the country's governing party, the African National Congress, the ANC, launched its manifesto for the May elections, in which some polls suggest its share of the vote could fall below 50% for the first time. KwaZulu-Natal is considered a key battleground. Will the age-old party weather the storm ahead, or will the opposition be able to convince the masses? Let's find out in our cover report this week.
South Africa's ANC was opening a new chapter at this mega event in Durban, a coastal city in the eastern province of KwaZulu-Natal. President Cyril Ramaphosa outlined his party's 6 priority areas at its election manifesto launch. The ANC leader conceded the party had made mistakes and vowed to do better for the country.
There have been times when we have misstepped, where we've made mistakes, where we've taken a step backwards. But this happens with an organization that is working.
It's not only the ANC who will be hunting for votes. South Africa's main opposition party also went out on the streets to woo supporters for the May 29th elections.
The Democratic Alliance is launching our 2024 manifesto from the Union buildings because we today are sending a clear message that in this election we are in it to win it.
On February 9th, thousands of EFF supporters attended the party's manifesto launch. The party leader and commander-in-chief Julius Malema lashed out at President Cyril Ramaphosa, leader of the ruling party, the ANC.
We are fighting black people who are standing on our way, being black outside and white inside. Those are sellouts. Like Ramaphosa, when we fight him, we make no apology.
Renowned for its theatrics, the EFF has gained prominence advocating radical reforms. Its agenda includes land redistribution and nationalizing key economic sectors to tackle deep inequalities that persist even 3 decades after apartheid. Then there is the rather muted party called Umkhonto we Sizwe, or the MK Party, the brainchild of former President Jacob Zuma. The party organized a recruitment drive that its leader did not attend. South Africa's ruling ANC had sacked Zuma from the party this January and vowed to launch a legal challenge against a rival group campaigning in his name. The widely expected decision will be seen as a further sign of disunity in the movement, ahead of this year's general election, in which the long-dominant ANC is expected to lose ground. Zuma was the 4th president of Democratic South Africa from 2009 to 2018, but was forced out of office under the cloud of corruption allegations. In December 2023, he declared he would be campaigning for a new party, Umkhonto we Sizwe, or Spear of the Nation. The party is named after the ANC's former armed wing during the anti-apartheid struggle.
Calling members of the ANC MK to vote for MK.
In power since the advent of democracy in 1994, President Cyril Ramaphosa's African National Congress has suffered a sharp decline in support. Beset by allegations of corruption and mismanagement, recent polls suggest the ANC could lose its parliamentary majority in the May 29 election. It will be the first time since Nelson Mandela led the country through its first democratic elections at the fall of apartheid 30 years ago. Yet the party remains a formidable machine, with supporters at all levels of government across most of the country. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
From the south, we head west, where the regional bloc ECOWAS, threatened by the exit of 3 coup-hit nations of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, tried to win back the trust of the junta leaders by convening a special summit in Nigeria's capital of Abuja. So far, sanctions against Guinea and Niger have been lifted, and the member states are extending an olive branch to the military commanders in the region not to put their people in jeopardy. Will dialogue prevail? That answer only lies with the junta regimes. Here's a report.
It was a gathering convened in a huff in Abuja, Nigeria. Heads of state from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, arrived in the Nigerian capital for an extraordinary summit to discuss the situation in Niger that has been under sanctions for 7 months. After various meetings, the regional bloc made a resolution announcing the lifting of travel and economic sanctions on Niger. The move was aimed at reversing last year's coup in the country in a new push for dialogue. The bloc also renewed calls on 3 junta-led nations to reverse their decisions to quit the regional bloc.
Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between ECOWAS member states and Niger is to be lifted. This decision is based on humanitarian considerations, especially as we are in the month of Lent and as we prepare for the holy month of Ramadan.
Elite soldiers had toppled Niger's democratically elected president Mohamed Bazoum on July 26 last year. Neighboring countries immediately shut their borders, and Niger lost 70% of its power as Nigeria cut off its electricity supply. West African countries suspended financial and commercial transactions. Niger's assets in external banks were frozen as millions of dollars in aid was withheld. The sanctions, however, emboldened the junta in Niger and 2 other coup-hit countries of Mali and Burkina Faso. All 3 formed an alliance and announced last month that they have quit the 15-member bloc. Analysts call the withdrawal the bloc's biggest crisis since it was formed in 1975. None of the conditions that ECOWAS earlier put for the lifting of the sanctions have been met. This includes ECOWAS's request for releasing Niger's deposed president, as well as a short timeline for the junta to return power to the civilians.
The complexity of the issues at hand necessitate a comprehensive and collaborative approach. Accordingly, it is incumbent upon also to engage in constructive dialogue, exercise prudent judgment, and work collectively towards finding an enduring solution that will lead to a sustainable peace, security, as well as political stability in our region.
The bloc also invited the junta-led countries' officials to technical and consultative meetings of ECOWAS and all security-related meetings. This marked a major shift from its usual tradition of blocking coup-hit countries from major meetings. The summit came at a critical time when the 49-year-old bloc's future is under threat. The bloc is struggling with possible disintegration and a recent surge in coups fueled by discontent with elected governments whose citizens rarely benefit from mineral resources. ECOWAS has emerged as West Africa's top political and economic authority, but it has struggled to resolve the region's most pressing challenge, the Sahel. This is a vast and arid expanse south of the Sahara Desert that stretches across several West African countries. The Sahel region faces growing violence from Islamist extremists and rebels that in turn has caused soldiers to depose elected governments. The 9 coups in West and Central Africa since 2020 have followed a similar pattern. Coup leaders have accused governments of failing to provide security and good governance. Most of the coup-hit countries are also among the poorest and least developed in the world. Bureau Report, WION The World is One.
In Kenya, the Ojik indigenous people are fighting their ongoing eviction from their ancestral Mau forest. Kenyan human rights advocates have taken legal action to block further evictions and accuse Kenyan authorities of serious violations. In at least the past decade, over 100,000 people have been evicted. Many have scattered across the forest area and are living in makeshift structures made of nylon bags as the government refuses to provide alternative housing. Here's a report from the Rift Valley.
The Mau Forest in Kenya covers nearly 4,000 hectares across several Rift Valley counties. Today, the crucial water catchment is at the center of a contentious battle between the indigenous Ojik people and the Kenyan authorities. The government is evicting the Ojik, holding them responsible for environmental degradation and compromising an important water source. The Ojik, who claimed a bond with the forest dating back more than a century, fell the trees for firewood and to sell charcoal. Jackson Gusilo's home was demolished by the police last November. In his early 40s, he reflects on a lifetime spent in Mau. Gusilo recounts the lack of warning and the widespread destruction that also left his neighbors without shelter.
We have not received any report or notice. We were shocked when the police started demolishing our houses without informing us of anything.
Human rights groups claim that the evictions of the Ojik people are not new. They have occurred sporadically over decades. Benson Nenai, another dispossessed local, pleads with the government for an alternative homeland for his community.
My request to the government is that if they know where the Ogiek community came from, instead of punishing us, show us where it is and we will go back home.
Urban life remains alien to many Ogiek, particularly the older generation. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has taken legal action, petitioning the Environment and Land Court against the evictions. It has also cited human rights violations. The court's verdict is pending. A temporary injunction against further evictions has been issued. In a recent display of resistance, the Ogiek community members marched to the Attorney General office in Nairobi. They delivered a petition asserting their right to inhabit the Mau Forest. Daniel Kobe, a community leader, disputes the conservation rationale behind the evictions, underscoring the Ojiek's long-standing environmental stewardship.
While we are the ones who have been conserving Mau over generations, so we don't know what is new. In fact, they should come and ask us on the technologies we have been using as a community to protect Mau or to protect our environment.
The Ojiek is an indigenous hunter-gatherer community that has maintained its unique language and social norms for centuries. Its people largely depend on the Mau forest as a source of their livelihood. But those norms have been threatened in recent years as they battle eviction from the forests. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
In the heart of South Africa, a mother's love for her daughter and her heritage sparked a movement. Lungile Zenda's TikTok channel, where she shares snippets of her teaching her young daughter Loyanda to speak Zulu, has become more than just a series of amusing videos. It's a beacon of hope for linguistic diversity and cultural preservation in a country where English dominance in work and education threatens to overshadow indigenous languages.
I have a dog.
The struggle is real, reads the caption of a TikTok video in which South African mom Lungile Zenda tries to teach her daughter how to say a sentence in their native language, Zulu. It took 11-year-old Luyanda several tries before she correctly pronounced the phrase, "I have a dog." The video has over 3 million views, with many laughing emojis in the comments. But Zenda's humorous home Zulu teaching videos have also gained a following because viewers can relate. In South Africa, where English is the dominant language of work and education, some children are losing proficiency in their mother tongues. The most common of these languages are Zulu and Xhosa. With over 150,000 followers, Lungile's TikTok channel is sparking conversations about linguistic diversity and cultural preservation.
A lot of the people around me, surrounding me, where I stay at work, we speak English towards each other. So it was never, in the back of my mind, I never thought, oh, I must teach her Zulu. All I did was just live my life, and later on I realized she was actually not picking up the language. Even though I was speaking it, I obviously wasn't speaking it all the time.
It was only when her daughter was around 9 that Zenda realized she was not picking up Zulu on her own. This spurred the language lessons, which she said has been a fun bonding opportunity for her and Luyanda. South Africa has 12 officially recognized languages. Most schools teach in English from grade 4 with an option to take a second language, although the offerings differ. A 20-year-old South African student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Amale Gebani, visited home for the holidays and offers a specific perspective. Raised in Johannesburg's affluent northern suburbs, but regularly visiting her grandmother in the economically polarized Soweto township, Gebani is an example of what happens when you grow up not speaking your mother tongue.
The pain is that even though we weren't taught when we were younger, now that we're trying to learn, people make fun of us for learning, right? People will say, you speak so squint, just stick to English. And then if I stick to English and I don't practice my mother tongue, how am I going to learn my mother tongue? And then how am I going to teach future generations?
The Progress in International Reading Literacy Study, the 2021 report of the Progress in International Reading Literacy Study revealed that 81% of grade 4 pupils in South Africa struggle with reading for meaning. All this is attributed to the absence of mother tongue learning.
I do feel more connected to my peers and other friends and family members. And now that I can speak a bit more Zulu.
It's very beneficial knowing an African language, because at the end of the day, if you're in South Africa or in Africa, one way or another, you are going to have to interact with African people with the African languages.
For Zenda, this has been a life-changing experience, not only as a mom, but as a caregiver.
So I get a lot of DMs, parents coming to me and saying, oh my God, thank you so much for putting this video up. I thought I was the only one. And we sort of have a little community outside of the comment section where we're like, you go girl, keep going.
Streetlight schools in Johannesburg have recognized the importance of mother tongue learning for their students' development. Despite some difficulties with Zulu among some grade 8 students, the school remains committed to improving literacy standards, one among a few in South Africa today. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And finally, ever heard of kitesurfing? Or better still, did you know that Cape Verde is a country in Africa? Well, want to know more about this rare sport and catch a glimpse of how magnificent the island nation looks? Check out this next report. And on that summer vibe note, it's a wrap on this week's episode of World of Africa. As always, get in touch with us on all our social media platforms and share your feedback on the show there. I'm Alyson Grange. Thanks for watching. And from Durban, South Africa, stay tuned to WION World is One.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
We are one, you and I. Burning in the sun. Rising in the rain. One in celebration. One in pain. One